on the campus of Wayne State University with Governor Rick Snyder and Congressman Mark Schauer. Our audience is made up of non-committed voters and guests. They will get to ask questions of the candidates, along with our moderators, Stephen Henderson of the Detroit Free Press and Nolan Finley of the Detroit News. Now let me introduce the candidates for Governor Rick Snyder and Congressman Mark Schauer.
Well, gentlemen, welcome. As Christy noted, there are few rules in this town hall format, no clock, no buzzers, but we do ask that you keep your answers concise so we can move through as many issues as possible. You've foregone opening statements so we can get right to questions. Coin toss behind the stage puts the first question to Mr. Schauer. Mr. Schauer, you've said your opponent has cut $1 billion from education spending. Where do you come up with that number?
Great. Well, first, I want to thank you, and it's great to be at Wayne State University. I was raised in Livingston County, where my dad was a teacher and my mom was a nurse. I saw the difference they made. They taught me that the key to a good job is a good education. Now, it is true that Rick cut $1 billion from public schools, raised taxes on seniors, and gave 80 and 90% pay raises to his top executives in state government. I think that's wrong. The key to a good job is a good education. It is my number one priority. Now, there are some verifiable sources you can look to. The Senate Fiscal Agency. His first budget cut $930 million from our public schools. Now, he even told the Kalamazoo Gazette at that time, when he was visiting there, that those cuts would be difficult. He's right. His cuts to the classroom, the Per Pupil Foundation grant, he cut $300 per pupil. That hurts our kids. They're in more crowded classrooms. Teachers don't have the materials they need. Basic programs have been eliminated. Now, today, it is a fact that schools still have less per pupil dollars in the classroom when he started 4 years ago. But I'll close with this. Don't take my word for it. Talk to any teacher. Talk to school board members, parents, school districts all around the state. I even met with a group of parents in East Grand Rapids. They are going door to door, raising money on social media, and even holding bake sales to raise money for music, art, special education, and foreign languages. That's wrong. That hurts our kids, hurts our economy.
Let's hear from your opponent. Governor, did you cut $1 billion out of education?
No, Nolan. And actually, it's really clear. Let's make this really simple, because you hear about a lot of different things in terms of different pieces of that, different pieces of this. Let me make this as simple as possible. The year before I became governor, the state budget for K-12 was $10.6 billion. That's a number that doesn't change. The budget I just signed into law was $11.7 billion. So the budget I just signed is more than $1 billion higher than the year before I took office. If you take those 3 years in between and look at those budgets, it's $1.1 billion in a cumulative fashion more than if you would have taken that 10.6 each and every year. That's not an argument, an item you can dispute. And the part I would reinforce is I'd actually look at the Free Press. The Free Press actually covered it to say I've been truthful about my number for education. And unfortunately, our broken political system has people making up lies. It's not good for any of us. It's important to invest in education because kids are our future. I believe in it. And one thing I'm really proud of to add to that is not only is K-12 important, but we've become a no-wage state for preschool in Michigan. We've made the largest investment in the United States in dollars and percentage for preschool of any state in the nation. Why would we make that investment if we were cutting education? It's really to reinforce it, to say we need to focus on third grade reading. We're doing better in Michigan. We're at 63%, we're at 70%, but we need to get that number even higher. And that's what I want to work on in the second term, is let's grow that number The other thing...
We've got some other education issues to get to. I don't think you two are ever going to agree on the billion-dollar cut, but I would ask Congressman Schauer, charter schools have been another area of contention over the last several months. Do you feel charter schools need more regulation? Would you put the cap back on?
Absolutely, Nolan. Thank you for that question. The first thing I'm going to do as governor is put the money back that he took from our public schools. It is irrefutable. You can check, again, nonpartisan sources. There are less dollars in the classroom, dollars that educate our kids, than before he became governor. Now, one of the other problems that's hurting our schools, school districts all over the state. There are 48 school districts that are in deficit. And there'd be even more because a number of them have disappeared because they went broke. Charter schools were allowed to expand with no oversight. That was a big mistake by this governor, and it's hurting our kids. Most of, Stephen, the Free Press did an 8-day series on what's happened to our public schools. 80% of these charter schools are run by for-profit companies. Let me be clear. Public education should not be a profit-making venture. Dollars should get to the classroom, to our kids. These are unregulated schools with sweetheart real estate deals, lack of accountability. It is hurting our kids. So, yes, I wouldn't expect my opponent with his record to sign into law oversight of charter schools. I will do it. I will do it when I am governor.
Governor, are charter schools hurting public education in Michigan?
Charter schools are giving parents choice because we've had a lot of failing schools in our state. And the point behind charter schools was to give parents the opportunity to have their kids get an education, create some competition in our educational system. That's important. And they're not unregulated. There's authorizers behind them, and the Department of Education helps provide oversight. One thing I can tell you, though, is I think we need higher standards for all schools, both charters and traditional public schools. We need to raise that bar. We need to raise those standards. And when you talk about funding, I am a strong believer in traditional public school. When we talked about that funding number and I talked about the billions that we've invested more in education, actually I did it in a fashion that gave an extra slice to traditional public schools more than charter schools. The other part I did it for was to make sure those hardworking teachers actually have a well-funded retirement system. And that's been one of the huge problems and issues, that wasn't being properly funded. So when you see those teachers complain about me on TV, hopefully they can also recognize we've done more to ensure they have a well-funded retirement plan, not just them, but all public school employees, than they'd otherwise have. Because I believe in that. That's important.
And Governor, and hold off just a minute, Congressman, because we have an audience question on this issue. Christy?
We do, Nolan. Hi, go ahead and tell us your name and your question.
Hi, my name is Nikita Kathirpal, and my question is, what are your plans to support higher education and job training so that we make sure that Michigan workers are ready for good jobs?
And let's go ahead and start with Mr. Schauer on that.
Great. Thank you so much. Do you go to school here at Wayne State?
Yes.
Great. Well, I just met a student who wants to become a teacher. And by the way, I believe that educators are the most important profession in our society. She will be graduating with $32,000 of student loan debt. Now, she also told me about her boyfriend. I think they're going to get married, it sounds like to me, and he's a law student. He will be graduating with $100,000 of student loan debt. Imagine that combined. It is a fact that with Rick as governor, tuition has increased every year for college students. You are racked with student loan debt that in the cost of tuition that puts colleges out of sight. So I'm going to do three things. First, we're going to keep our commitment as a state to our state universities to increase funding. They were cut 15% by this governor in his first year. Wayne State was cut $42 million. Second, I'm going to provide more need-based financial aid for students so that everyone that wants to pursue higher education can do that. And third, we're going to put together a student loan revolving fund to help students like Brianna Bolton, who I met, the future teacher, and you, refinance that student loan debt so that they're not saddled with that and actually they can spend more of their income in our economy. I understand the key to building a strong economy is from the bottom up and middle out, not from the top down.
Governor, same question.
Great. No, and I appreciate it. Good luck on your career. That's fabulous. If you look at it, higher ed is critically important. A couple key things I'll tell you because it is too expensive. First of all, we need to be more innovative on what we do, what we work on, and it was great. I just got my associate's degree a couple weeks ago from Kellogg Community College. I was really proud of that. And when I was in Battle Creek, I was talking to their programs. In Battle Creek alone, they have 1,200 students in dual enrollment. We are encouraging dual enrollment in every corner of the state. That's where you can get college credit while you're going to high school. Think about that, because we're going to increase financial need-based resources. We're helping manage costs. But let's be innovative. And by getting a year of college done while you're still in high school, think about this. You can drop the cost of a bachelor's degree by 25% and an associate's degree by 50%. That's the best value you're going to get. The other thing is that is critically important is career tech education. That's a number one priority for me in a second term, is really creating those middle-class job opportunities through greater training, through reestablishing career tech ed as an equal track to the university track. We're already doing some with our community colleges, but it can be much better. And one illustration is Math Squared, a program I brought back from Germany, the apprenticeship model. It's the Michigan Advanced Technician Training Program. How does it work? You go into the program. You start working for a company. You alternate going to school. The company pays your tuition cost while you go to school. At the end of 3 years, you come out with an associate's degree, a certificate, a guaranteed job, and a work commitment for 2 years.
Thank you, Governor.
And talk about a great career opportunity.
We've got to move along.
We're going to move on to a different subject. Your tax reforms resulted in about $1.7 billion less in business tax revenue. There's also about $1 billion, $1.6 billion more in individual tax revenue coming in, largely from middle and low income earners. Is this good policy? Why is that fair?
Well, let's start. We had a $1.5 billion deficit when I took office. So we had huge problems because we had the lost decade before I came into office. And we've seen a big recovery. And what was the point of the business changes in terms of changing the tax law? Is to make it fair. It's about fundamental fairness, folks. Do you remember all those companies that were closing up? Part of it is they had a big tax burden. When you have to pay your taxes, you know how tight it was. We were putting an extra tax on our businesses to say not only do you have to pay the individual income tax, because most of these are small and medium-sized businesses, we're going to stick you with a second tax. If you went down to Indiana, why were all those businesses going to Indiana? They were marketing their greatest economic development tool was the Michigan business tax. It was killing jobs, folks. And what did we do? We got rid of that unfair tax and replaced it with a simple, fair 6% corporate net income tax. So the big companies actually are still paying the same, roughly, except I got rid of all those tax credits, those incentives. And for the small and medium-sized business people, we have any small and medium-sized business people here tonight? We've got a few. You know what it was like. Think about this. We built a tax system that said the people that create jobs, because that's where jobs come from, should pay more than we pay on our salaries and wages. That's not how you create jobs, folk. What we made was a fair system to encourage job creation. The Congressman voted for the Michigan business tax. It's something we had to get rid of to be successful in this state.
Congressman, you have said you wanted to repeal the pension tax, for instance. If you did that, how would you make up the revenue? And is that fair to be taxing 401ks, for instance, but not pensioners?
Thank you, Stephen. I would urge everyone to read the column Stephen co-authored about a week ago that talked about this issue. Rick cut taxes for businesses by $1.8 billion. There are 95,000 businesses in Michigan that pay zero taxes, including to fix our roads. Now, he talked about balancing a budget. He dug the hole $1.8 billion deeper and then turned around and cut $1 billion from our schools, raised taxes on working families, low-wage earners, and yes, on pensioners by $1.4 billion. Yes, I will repeal the job-killing pension tax. It is wrong. It is bad tax policy. It is breaking a promise. It's causing seniors to leave our state and prevent others from coming to our state. A retired couple born 1952 or after are paying $3,100 more a year in tax because of his policies, and he thinks that's fair. It'll be the easiest thing I do as governor because there are a number of Republican legislators out campaigning that want to repeal it. So what we're going to do is we're going to provide tax fairness in our state. But to pay for it, we start by cutting all the wasteful programs and sweetheart contracts that this governor has created, starting with his cousin George's $41 million furniture contract, stop giving tax breaks to companies that cut jobs or send jobs overseas, eliminate this wasteful, scandalous Aramark contract.
Governor,
that's just for starters.
He says that you've put too much of a burden on low-income and middle-income earners. Is that true?
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the pension tax, because I'm glad that came up, because that's a mischaracterization of what we did. We created a fairer system. And what do I mean by that? We built a system that actually had a wonderful benefit if you had certain kinds of pension income. And how did it work? If you happen to have a public retiree pension, you didn't pay any Michigan income tax, regardless of your age or the amount of that pension. If you happen to have a defined benefit plan through a private employer, well, you didn't get quite the same deal. You were excluded up to certain limits. If you happen to be a person that worked at a place where you got a 401k and you started taking those distributions after you left work, part of it was taxable, part of it wasn't. And for the people that didn't have a retirement plan, that were still having to work, they were paying Michigan income tax. To be blunt, I don't think that's fair. Does that make any sense? So what did we do? One, we realized we had a big benefit for a group of people, so we grandfathered in the seniors. If they're 67 or older, we grandfathered it in. We put a special provision 60 for anyone 60 or older to exclude up to $40,000 for a married couple. And what else did we do? We put in a new senior exclusion. So we actually helped those people that were still having to work not to have to pay tax. If you think about it, we actually created an exclusion for up to $40,000 for a married couple, for a working family, that they don't have to pay. So actually we help seniors across the board.
Just very quickly, our accountant governor is missing some columns on his spreadsheet, and it's called people. Jeanette Pizzo here is retired from Meyer. Her husband is retired from General Motors. They counted on that pension. I ran into a gentleman the other day who said he voted for you last time, and he was sorry. His General Motors pension is being taxed. He's paying $133 more a year in tax. He said, that's a utility payment. I can't afford it. It is wrong. It is bad policy. If you think that's fair, no wonder our economy is not working.
I think it's fair to help working seniors, to say they deserve a break. People that didn't happen to have a certain kind of retirement income, they need help.
Okay.
And that's what we provided them. And the other part, Nolan, I'd like to mention is he's brought up a couple other things that had nothing to do with the question. He brought up my cousin and the furniture contract. So I'd like to straighten that out. Let's get the facts straight on that one. That contract, my cousin is a distributor, and I think it's somewhat disgusting that he's impinging on a good person's name. The contract's with Hayworth. My cousin's the distributor. That contract has been out with that Hayworth and him as a distributor for 20 plus years, a couple decades. The last time it was renewed and went through the whole process of being reevaluated and re-signed, it was before I became governor. Has nothing to do with me becoming governor. So this is a professional politician, again, making up stuff. The other one he mentioned earlier was the investment officer, because I want to be fair about this. He said, I gave huge raises to my officials. They're civil service employees, folks. That was approved by the Bipartisan Civil Service Commission.
Okay, Governor.
Because they're managing $60 billion.
We've got a lot of issues to go through. I think we've gotten both of your positions.
Well, let me just get one more line on this.
Really?
Think about it. The UAW, well, this is important. These people are managing, the head person's managing $70 billion. To give you a sense, do we have any UAW members here?
Now, Governor, we have to move on.
They pay their same person $499,000.
We're moving off this issue. I think we could fight all night on this. But
I'll get back to it.
We're not going to. We're going to talk about transportation and roads. Congressman, Michigan has some of the worst roads in the nation. How will you fix them? Who pays and how?
Nolan, thank you. That is an incredible question. The three biggest issues I hear from people as I've traveled in every corner of the state, every one of our 83 counties. It's school cuts, pension tax, and our roads. We are 50 out of 50 in per capita spending on our roads. It shows. You spend $2.5 billion a year collectively here on repairs to our cars because of the horrible roads. Now, I'll tell you what I won't do. At crunch time in the legislative process, where Democrats and Republicans were really trying to put a solution together earlier in the summer, I will not be in Manhattan with a billionaire hosting a fundraiser for me. I think we understand why. He's now spending $2 million on behalf of his campaign. When I was in the legislature my first term, we solved this problem. That's the last time it was done. Now, John Engler was not AWOL. We had a bipartisan legislature. We did this together. I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do. First thing is, as a former member of Congress, the Transportation Committee, we're going to get our fair share from Washington. When I was there, I brought back $850 million to help fix our roads, and we have much more to do. And I know we've got some people here that are going to help us do that.
Okay, Congressman, we have to hear from your opponent. We have to move this along. Governor, how are you going to fix the roads? Who pays?
Yeah, and we're going to get a solution done. I hope in lame duck it should be a top priority. I've been calling for this for a couple years because it is about safer roads, jobs for us, and getting rid of those repairs. Because how many people had a blown tire or bent rim in the last year? A lot of people did. And shouldn't we have invested that money in the roads? Well, the challenge is much of the legislature was having a tough time addressing this issue. Pothole season brought it home. And what we got was pretty far along the process. We got farther than it had been done in a lot of years. But it was an election year. So you found many legislators saying that they weren't going to vote for a revenue increase going into an election season. So we'll get through the election season. Let's get it done because it's for everyone's benefit. Better roads will lead to better jobs, save hundreds of lives a year, and make us much better off. That's why I've been calling for a couple years. If the congressman and the people back in '97 would have made it something other than cents per gallon, we most likely might not be even having this discussion today.
Governor, thank you. And Christy, you have an audience question?
We sure do. Go ahead and give us your name and what's your question?
My name is Harris Kogel, and what is your stance on implementing mass transit in Michigan?
And Mr. Schauer, we'll start with you first.
Great. Harris, thank you very much. That's a great question. I've actually run a nonprofit community development organization that provided transit services for the elderly and handicapped in Battle Creek. It is critical to help Detroit come back, to help our cities come back. We need transit. One of the reasons we need to fix our roads, and it is a question of leadership here, and I will lead in a bipartisan way to get this done, and my time in the legislature will help me do that in bringing Democrats and Republicans together. But there's funding in the transportation package for transit.
Yeah, in terms of mass transit, I'm happy with what we're doing. Actually, we did something that hadn't happened for decades. We got through bipartisan legislation to do a regional transit authority. It was one of the great missing needs in Metro Detroit for decades. We got it done, and we're going to move forward with that. M1 Rail, we moved forward with that project. Again, we're helping transportation all over. High-speed rail we're doing in Michigan. So I'm very proud of the track record I have because it's a great opportunity for the future, and it's one of those placemaking things that attract young people to Michigan and keep you right here.
Thank you, Governor.
Okay, Governor, Detroit, the city of Detroit has an emergency manager and is trying to get through a complicated bankruptcy. Is this the right policy, the right approach to the relationship between cities and states? Is there more the state needs to do to prevent cities from falling into those financial problems? And what do they need to do to help them out on the back end?
Oh, that was a big question, Stephen. You
Lots of questions.
Kept going there. Let me start the other way, that actually what we're doing now is we're working on an early warning system to help communities, because I never want to appoint an emergency manager. And it's not a subjective process, folks. It's an objective process. I don't simply decide that. Certain conditions in terms of a financial emergency have to exist first. And with respect to Detroit, I went through that in a very systematic way, trying to work with the prior administration in Detroit to say, let's just work together. That didn't work. We did a consent agreement to say the city needed to do certain things in order to get the city out of trouble. Those things weren't done. So then it came to an emergency manager. So I appointed an emergency manager. And then it came to the question of actually putting Detroit in bankruptcy. That was one of the toughest decisions to be made in the United States. It was the right decision to make. Look at where we are today. We're within a month to 2 months, most likely, of coming out of bankruptcy. We would have shed $9 billion of liabilities. If we hadn't have done this, the operating budget for the city of Detroit, more than 60% would go to paying past debts. There would be no money for services. In the meantime, while this has been going on, what's been happening? Street lights have been going up, trash is being picked up, public safety is improving, violent crimes down in double-digit percentages in the city of Detroit. All these good things are going on. And now we've transitioned back out because my goal is to have the emergency manager come in, do their job, get out, be done, and get it back to the community with good oversight, though, so it doesn't fall backwards. Stop and think. Have you ever thought you'd see Detroit as well poised for a bright future as you see today?
Okay, Congressman, you have opposed the emergency manager legislation. How would you handle all of this differently?
Well, first, I believe in democracy. The people voted in 2012 to overturn that law. As governor, placing myself, becoming governor in 2011, I would have abided by the will of the voters. What I would have done is personally led. As governor, I will be in Detroit. I will work out of the office on Cadillac Place and be a full partner with Mayor Duggan for the comeback of Detroit. Mayor Duggan is supporting me because he knows that I will be a strong and active partner. We need good jobs in our communities, but what I will do as governor, in addition to personally lead, is put together financial transition teams where we can be proactive. And what our current governor has done, two things, is engaging in a strategy of fighting fires, fighting crises. Of course, $69 million revenue sharing cut for police and fire to the city of Detroit didn't help. But after cities get into financial crisis and school districts get into financial crisis, they assign emergency managers. The second thing, quickly, is that I would never have cut retiree pensions. Our Constitution is clear. Pensions are guaranteed. And again, on top of the pension tax, now cutting pensions through his emergency manager as governor himself is wrong. It's hurting people. That's no way to build a strong economy. It is a
Governor,
broken promise.
I'm going to give you a chance to respond to the question about democracy. You're suspending local democracy when you send an emergency manager. People in the state voted not to have emergency managers. How do you address that?
No, what they said is we've had emergency managers going back to Governor Blanchard, 1988. So there have been a lot of emergency managers before I started this process. In fact, I inherited a number of them. What we did was enhance the skill sets so they could come do their job, get out. There was a ballot proposal that said certain aspects of it people didn't like. We listened to that. We didn't do those things. We put something back in place so we could move forward, though. And think about this. Traditionally, emergency managers were there way too long. So in Detroit, other than the bankruptcy, the city is now running the city of Detroit. We had an emergency manager that we've now has left in Pontiac, Benton Harbor, Allen Park, Ecorse. It's working, folks. We're getting these citizens back on their feet that didn't have an opportunity before because we know how big the messes were. And I'd ask the congressman, if you're not going to do things like looking at bankruptcy, a very last resort, and again, it is constitutional. A federal judge said that. I'd ask the question is, what are you going to do to pay those $9 billion in liabilities? How are you going to have a budget where you have 60% going to liability costs?
Yeah, very quickly, Congressman, and then we have an audience.
Again, we'll go back to a hypothetical. If I would have been governor without an emergency manager, that would not have changed the books for the city of Detroit. I'm not questioning whether the city of Detroit needed to go bankrupt, but I would have personally led rather than having an unelected, unaccountable person do it, and I would have never have thrown Detroit city pensioners, police officers, firefighters under the bus. That hurts them.
We didn't leave them underneath the bus. We did the grand bargain. And I want to thank the bipartisan support of the legislature to work with the foundation community. Retirees did take cuts, but we minimized them. I appreciate it. They ended up supporting the agreement, and I respect them for their great role in this settlement.
We need to go to the audience here.
All right, we do have another question. Go ahead and give us your name and your question, please, sir.
Gentlemen, I'm Don Graham, and I believe that our cities are struggling with their budgets for public service. And how can the governor's office assist in providing revenue for adequate police, fire, and rescue services?
Let's go back over to Mr. Schauer. Go ahead.
Great. Thank you very much, Don. That is a great question. Revenue sharing has been cut significantly by this governor, and the impact is fewer police officers and firefighters on the job. That is critical to building strong, healthy communities. What we need to do is have a strategy to support our cities. They are the hubs for innovation and entrepreneurship, and having adequate basic services like roads and infrastructure are critical to attracting people and attracting investment. What I will do, seeing that this current system we have is broken, we need to put together a strategy for municipal finance in Michigan, similar to funding our schools. You know, Proposal A is 20 years old. I think most would agree it's not adequately funding our schools, especially with the cuts that have happened the last 4 years. But we need to pull together our best ideas involving local communities to design a partnership between the state and our local communities. The fact is, our cities and villages and counties are aspirations of the state. We are in this together. And I'll close with this. What I've seen under this governor is a reverse trickle down. While the state has cut funding to local communities, what I see in community after community is they're raising taxes on voters for police and fire and to fix our roads. Okay. So really this governor is passing the buck.
We're going to have to move on to the next subject.
So go ahead, Snyder, if you want to answer this question.
Okay.
That's my fault. That's my fault, Governor.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. We had a $1.5 billion deficit. So we had to make some really tough choices that first year, and I did. Since then, we've been investing back in our cities in terms of bringing back revenue sharing, in terms of watching those numbers come. Been critically focused on public safety. That is really important. 4 key cities we focused in with the Secure City Partnership in particular were Detroit, Flint, Pontiac, and Saginaw, because they're 4 of the most violent cities in the United States. They're on the top 10. We're seeing double-digit progress in terms of reducing violent crime in those communities. That's real progress. And to give you an idea, do public safety people support the work I'm doing? I'm proud to say I've been endorsed by both the Fraternal Order of Police and the Police Officers Association of Michigan. They understand what I've been doing, and they're supporting me.
Thank you, Governor. As long as you're up there, let's take the next question to you. Michigan's unemployment rate still lags the national average. Why hasn't job growth been more robust in the state, and what will you do to get people working here and get household incomes growing again?
Yeah, job growth has been robust in Michigan, Nolan, and I'm proud of that track record. Nearly 300,000 private sector jobs. When you talk how we lag, well, why would we lag? We're at the bottom. During the last decade, we led unemployment in this nation for how many months, for how many years? We've improved dramatically. And to give you a point, when you hear about the unemployment rate, how many people recognize that a lot of those jobs we lost in that last decade went south, literally went south, to southern states? How many people from Detroit went down to Atlanta because there was an opportunity? Well, to give you a gauge of how well we've improved, we've been the 5th largest number of new jobs in the country for any state is in Michigan, number 5. In terms of rate of increase, we're number 13. That's well beyond being at the bottom. That's coming back fast. To give you an idea of perspective, we now have the same unemployment rate as those states where those jobs went. We match Tennessee. We actually match California. To give you an idea, Alabama has a higher unemployment rate than Michigan does now. Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia has a much higher unemployment rate than Michigan. So we've come back hard. Those jobs we were losing to the South because we've done tax reform, regulatory reform, we're showing that we're keeping them here in Michigan and we're bringing them back to Michigan. That's exciting.
Thank you, Governor. Mr. Schauer, how will you get this economy growing at a greater speed?
Great. Well, we first put the money that was cut to our schools back. We reverse the Snyder job-killing pension tax and provide tax cuts for middle-class families. You know, I think we understand the key to building a strong economy is from the bottom up and the middle out, not from the top down. Our accountant governor's dashboards are broken and I think he's even admitted that in his television commercials where he said, hire me for 4 more years and you don't feel it yet, but you will. To claim success or comeback or road to recovery when we've got the 5th worst unemployment rate in the country. The last national jobs report showed Michigan losing the most jobs of any state in the country, 9,500 jobs. We are one of the few states in the country that hasn't recovered all of the jobs lost in the Great Recession. According to his own Michigan Economic Development Corporation, the leading segment of job growth in Michigan are fast food jobs. We need to rebuild our middle class in Michigan. And we start by making public education our number 1 priority. We provide tax cuts for middle-class families, just like I did in Congress. We reverse the Snyder job-killing pension tax. And then finally, I will help small businesses. My wife, Christine, owned a small business. We know how to do it. And I will provide tax incentives to companies that create jobs here in Michigan. And if they send their jobs overseas, we'll make them repay every single penny to the taxpayer. That's how we create an economy that works for everyone, not just the wealthy.
Thanks, Congressman. Governor, you've talked about the skills gap since coming into office. What are you doing to erase that gap, and what will you do over the next 4 years to make sure the skills of Michigan workers match the available jobs?
Yeah, Nolan, it's a huge opportunity. It's really about creating middle-class jobs, and we're doing that in Michigan. The congressman didn't have his facts straight. He liked to talk about the job-killing senior tax. He voted for the job-killing Michigan business tax. Now, you look at in terms of job creation, the top priority are the skilled trades. And when I say skilled trades, that's everything from manufacturing to agriculture. I mentioned Matt Squared, the apprenticeship program we put in place. There are so many great opportunities to create that job path, and we're doing it. And it's working in our state. One thing that's why I really want to ramp up, though, is helping people become career connected. There are so many different programs. We're helping the people that are in real need, though, the structurally unemployed, with programs like Community Ventures, where we're taking people that never had a job opportunity and giving them an opportunity. We're putting them to work. We're finding that nearly a 70% retention rate after a year. They're making over $11 an hour, and now we're putting programs on top to give them upward mobility, to get them in those skilled trade programs. It's a giant opportunity here in Detroit. With the bridge coming, with M1, with all the entertainment district, what a great opportunity for skilled trade jobs in our state. That's my top priority in a second term, is to really bring back skilled trade training, career tech education.
Thank you. Congressman?
Yeah, thank you very much. Great question. One of the industries here that most needs skilled, trained workers is the auto industry. I was there in Congress when it counted. We rescued the auto industry and saved tens of thousands of jobs here in Michigan. Rick said that was overblown. I think he's wrong. Skilled workforce is the key to making Michigan competitive, to create a high-wage, high-skill, high-growth economy. That is my goal as governor. After I left Congress, I worked for businesses in Michigan and skilled trained workers through the union construction trades. And they are building our new energy economy. I've seen it firsthand. These are exactly the kinds of partnerships that I will support as governor. And, you know, bottom line, a skilled workforce is the key that's going to drive us forward. Community colleges play a critical role in this partnership as well. That's why in our public schools, cuts to schools that eliminate basic vocational programs are hurting our economy and hurting our workforce.
Okay, Congressman, thank you. Christy, you have a question from the audience?
Yep. Hi there. Go ahead and give us your name and your question.
My name is Heather Pike, and do you believe that raising the minimum wage would be good for the economy in Michigan?
We'll start with you, Governor Snyder.
Yeah, we did. And that was a good bipartisan effort. So we worked together.
You say it's good for the economy.
I said it was a good thing to do. We did that in a bipartisan fashion in terms of increasing the minimum wage in our state. And we did it in a thoughtful way. Both parties came together, both chambers came together. We had a good discussion, and we did something to help the people of Michigan.
Congressman?
Well, I'm very pleased that the minimum wage was raised. I began my campaign early November of last year by standing right here in the city of Detroit proposing an increase in our minimum wage. You know, I think it's wrong, and I think we are better here in Michigan to see parents raising their children on minimum wage jobs in poverty. So I compliment all of the citizens of Michigan that collected signatures to raise the minimum wage, and candidly, I think my opponent was worried about that being on the ballot. It is so important that we support good wages for workers. You know, most minimum wage earners raising children are parents, are women, and women are driving Michigan's economy. You know, the minimum wage is the right thing to do. As small business owners, we know that businesses can hire more employees when people have money in their pockets that they can spend in small businesses for gasoline, for groceries, for diapers in their kids. So I'm pleased that the minimum wage was raised. I championed it. It was the right thing to do.
Okay. Congressman, if you're elected governor, you could face the possibility of a legislature that is controlled, where both houses are controlled by the opposite party. How are you going to get anything done?
Well, I think the premise of that is based on this election and who votes. I think the Democrats are in a good position to win the state house, but we'll set that aside and make incredible gains in the state Senate. I've served 12 years in the legislature, 10 of those years in the minority. You know, I know what it's like to work together. You know, when I helped Brembro Brakes in Homer, Michigan choose Homer over Mexico to create jobs there, it wasn't because I got my name on the bill. I was able to work with members on the other side of the aisle, work with the governor's office to get it done. I think we've seen the experiment of a CEO governor who doesn't really understand how to work with legislators. I know I will value the legislative body. I will spend time with them with my sleeves rolled up, whether it's fixing our roads, whether it's helping to invest in our schools, but we will need bipartisan solutions. I believe our best solutions are bipartisan ones, and we need a governor who understands how the legislature works, respects how the legislature works, and is willing to roll up his sleeves to find bipartisan solutions. And I'm going to say one more thing. Having come in before term limits hit the legislature, it was a time before Democrats and Republicans were genetically predisposed to dislike each other or disagree. I think we need to change the political culture in Lansing, and I plan to do that and lead to do that when I'm governor.
Okay, Governor, to you, a slightly different question. Some of your harshest critics would say that you have been pushed into issues that you may not have agreed with by a legislature that's more conservative than you are. How do you answer that, specifically with issues like right to work?
Yeah, well, it's been about teamwork and partnership. And just to give the Congressman's record, so you know it's clear, is he was here when we shut down the state government. He was one of the leaders at that point in time. And do we want Washington coming back to Michigan in terms of what happens in Washington today? I'm proud of being bipartisan in our state. We've done incredible things. The grand bargain to support the bankruptcy settlement. Healthy Michigan to bring health care to lower income but hardworking people. I could give you a long list of different bills. One that touches my heart. I remember Senator Whitmer was with me on bullying. We did that together to stop bullying in our state, to stand up against bullies. One of the things I'm proud of, if you go do the research on the bills that passed that I've signed into law, over 75% of them have been bipartisan. There's been some polarizing bills that are partisan occasionally. There are bills that some of us don't like. I vetoed bills when I didn't think they were right, and I'm proud of my track record. It happens rarely because I have a great working relationship with legislators. We do great teamwork. We go behind closed doors. We have some really heated arguments. But when we come out, we try to work together because we're trying to bring up a higher level of civility and respect than you find in Washington. And we've done a really good job of that.
Quick follow-up, Congressman.
A comment. Again, this is about leadership. When the roads are fixed, you need to be there. One of my former colleagues, Senator Richardville, is here, and he was quoted in the press by saying every time the governor engaged and lobbied the legislature about expanding Medicaid, he lost votes. Leadership counts. It is important for a governor to reach out and work with the legislature. These are difficult challenges, but our kids deserve that leadership. Our economy deserves that leadership. Our seniors deserve that leadership, and I look forward to it. I will be in Lansing, where the legislature is, and I will work each and every day with the legislature to build an economy that works for everyone, not just the wealthy.
Yeah, I'd just like to add, the Congressman is very good at sound bites. And he's brought up another one that just follows the same path about how I wasn't in Detroit, now that I'm not in Lansing. Just to give you an idea of perspective. As governor, you'd need to be all over Michigan, but I'm proud of my track record. In Detroit, I've worked out of Cadillac Place, my office in Detroit, more than 130 days since I've been governor. That's a lot. In terms of working in the Capitol building, and it's not a ceremonial office, it's a working office. I've always treated it that way. It's over 170 days. Actually, they make fun of me sometimes, because quite often I will wear a tie on Tuesdays, because that's Capitol Day.
Okay, Governor, thank you. Governor, if the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals upholds Judge Friedman's overturning of Michigan's gay marriage ban, will you ask the Attorney General to pursue the appeal further, or will you let the matter rest?
Well, again, they're separate constitutional offices, Nolan, so we each have a choice in that matter, and I'm going to wait for the opinion to come down. That's a hypothetical, but I will respect what happens in our court system, and I think that's where the issue is going to be decided.
Where do you stand on the issue?
Well, again, I'm waiting for the outcome from the courts.
Okay. Congressman?
I think the voters deserve to know where the governor will stand on tough issues. Now, you may not agree with me on every issue. You may not agree with me on the issue of marriage equality or ending discrimination against people based on who they love. Discrimination will play no part in my office as governor. Now, his statement leads you to believe he has no position. This governor, through his own legislature, banned domestic partner benefits for gay and lesbian state employees. His tough choices are tough on all the wrong people. They're hurting people and hurting our families. I support marriage equality. Lisa Brown, my running mate, led, after Judge Friedman's decision on March 21st, opened her office to marry loving, committed, same-sex couples. And finally, it is not only the right thing to do, but it is an economic issue here in our state. To discriminate against people, talented people we need to help rebuild the city of Detroit and our communities is wrong. I've talked to parents who have adult children who are professionals that live in other states, won't come here because we have backward policies. And you have challenged, you have appealed Judge Friedman's decision, so you are a party to opposing marriage equality in Michigan. I think that's wrong. I disagree.
All right, Congressman, since you're up anyway, Michigan spends more than $2 billion a year on corrections, which is way more per capita than neighboring states. How do you cut that without compromising public safety?
Great. Well, the first thing I'll do is get rid of the Aramark Prison Food Service contract. That contract never should have been awarded in the first place. It has been a debacle. I, for the life of me, can't understand why he hasn't terminated a contract after smuggling contraband and inappropriate sexual relations and maggots in food and fines that were reported to the press but never charged. His own chief of staff pressuring the corrections director to back off. But here's what we need to do. We need to have, education is the best remedy to preventing people from entering the criminal justice system. So there's a front door strategy. We've got to educate people. I've helped, in addition, and I was responsible for Head Start for 450 children. In addition, I helped start 2 drug treatment courts. These are ways that give judges and community tools to provide the treatment, whether it's mental health, substance abuse, or even for veterans that may have traumatic brain injuries. So on the front end. In prison, I think in terms of reducing the prison population of folks that are there, I think we've got to look at our sentencing guidelines. As one corrections employee told me when I was on the Judiciary Committee in the Senate, we have to figure out who we're mad at versus who we're afraid of. There are elderly, sick folks in our prison that may not pose any danger. We need to review our sentencing guidelines. And then finally, we need to fully support the Michigan Prisoner Reentry Initiative to help people when they come back home. 80 to 90% of prisoners come back home, and it is in our best interest to not have them reoffend and return to prison.
Governor, I want to give you a chance to address the Aramark contract, but also I'd like you to talk some about sentencing reform.
Sure, I'm happy to. I appreciate it, Stephen, because you in fact, have been one of the leaders. I think you write about it every year, saying we spend more on higher ed than we spend on corrections.
More on corrections than higher ed.
Oh, I'm sorry. Right? More on corrections than higher ed. Yeah. And that's a challenge. What I can tell you is we've cut the corrections budget by well over $100 million since the time I've been in office. If you look at the actual number, it's not come down in terms of numbers because now we're properly funding retirement programs and other things for the workers that wasn't being done before, those hardworking employees again. But we've significantly reduced our cost in terms of corrections. But we need to do it in a smart way because public safety needs to come first. In terms of Aramark, Aramark has been successful in multiple other states. There's 4 states they've been there 10 years plus doing their food service at a lower cost. They've got another state they've been in for some time. If you look at Michigan, if you have a problem with someone on a contract, the congressman would just throw them out. I don't know about you. I try to work with people first before I throw somebody out. So we've had problems and issues with both Aramark and the Department of Corrections. I did fine them $200,000 that we're paying for an expert, a person that's run corrections in 2 states, that's a former corrections officer, to come get to the bottom of it, to come get the solution to work, or we will take action. Then with respect to corrections in general, I think the congressman's been reading my white papers and my papers again. We are doing sentencing reform that's actively underway. In terms of courts, we're doing drug courts, veterans courts, specialty courts. In terms of the United States, we're helping lead the effort in terms of a mental health commission that just gave a report. Our outstanding lieutenant governor co-chaired it with Jim Haveman. They did outstanding work because too often we're locking people up when they have a mental health issue. And we're getting on top of that. We're being proactive. We're not talking about it. We're doing it.
Okay.
And then prisoner reentry, we actually did pretty well in Michigan. But it's outdated. It can be done much better, and we're improving that.
Okay. Governor, we need to go to the audience.
All right. Go ahead. Give us your name and your question, please.
Hi, my name is Wink Coventry, and I have a question about the environment. I would like to ask each candidate, what is your position on fracking, and what plans would you put into effect in the event of contamination of water?
Congressman Schauer, you want to start?
We've got 45 seconds each on this one because we are coming to the end.
Well, let me be clear. Part of my jobs plan, which you can read at markschauer.com/jobs plan, talks about energy in the environment. And I will never sacrifice the environment for jobs. It's either both or neither. As the Great Lakes state, our quality of life after our people is our most precious asset. So we must protect our natural resources. I also want us to stop spending $24 billion a year on imported energy. That's why I've been a leader in growing the renewable energy economy here. But let me point out that the proposed rules from Rick's Department of Environmental Quality would sacrifice the environment. They were weak.
Are done, Governor?
Yeah, I appreciate it, because we do want energy independence in this country. And to be open with you, fracking is one of the most effective tools to do that, but it's got to be done right. It does need to respect the environment. I'm very pro-environmental. I'm proud to say I'm co-chair of the Great Lakes Governors Conference to take care of the Great Lakes. In Michigan, we do fracking right. I bet I can tell you a stat here that no one would really know of most of the audience. In Michigan, we fracked over 10,000 wells in our state and never had a problem. We do fracking right in Michigan. We have the toughest rules. We enforce them. We work with industry. We get results for more energy independence. And the rest of the country is looking at Michigan as a role model.
We've got to get to our final question. First to you, Governor. Are Michigan residents better off than they were 4 years ago? And how will they be better off in the next 4 years if you're still governor?
Sure. Well, actually, I'm going to cite something no one wrote this week. He had an editor's note.
Don't do that.
And it was actually Richard Zuba. There was a poll taken through the paper where more than half of Michiganders were now feeling good about the future of the state of Michigan. You know the last time that happened? It was 9/11. Not 9/11 of last year, when 9/11 happened. Well over a decade. People are seeing a bright future in Michigan again. And we need to keep that up. In a second term, my priorities are more and better jobs with a key focus on the skilled trades, career tech education, creating those middle-class job opportunities for people. They're there. We can do it. P20, education, about being more effective, starting with preschool, going through that process of getting the most effective teachers in the classroom, doing dual enrollment, career tech education again, and then finally good government. We run our government right now. We're financially responsible. We're paying our long-term debts. I can tell you, if you want a really cool job in Michigan, run for governor in 2038. That's when we've got a payment plan in place, because we do 50-year forecasts to make sure we're not dropping problems on our kids like we inherited. We're taking care of those issues, so we'll have a bright future, not just for us, but for our kids, and building a foundation for decades to come. That's exciting. Let's not go back to the lost decade. Let's not let professional politics mess up Michigan again. It's time for us to work together. Look at what we're doing with Detroit and so many other great things. The progress is happening. Let's keep going.
Okay, Congressman, a minute and a half to address
Thank you
why
very
we'll
much.
be better off over the next 4 years.
I've spent my entire life fighting for an economy that works for regular people. In the legislature, I fought back against outsourcing. In Congress, I helped rescue the auto industry and make sure we create good middle-class jobs and strengthen Buy American standards. Now, I'm running for governor because I believe that we together can build an economy that works for everyone, not just the wealthy. Now, Rick Snyder's economy may work for you if you're wealthy or a big corporation or one of his employees that got an 80 or 90% pay raise. But if you're a student, a teacher, a parent, or grandparent, it's not working for you, and those policies won't work for you either. I've outlined a detailed jobs plan. First three things. One, restore the cuts to our schools, and I will make public education my #1 budget priority. Second, cut taxes for the middle class, and I will end the Snyder job-killing pension tax. And third, I'll help small businesses and entrepreneurs here and provide tools and tax incentives for companies to create good jobs here in Michigan. But when they eliminate jobs or send them overseas, I'll make them repay each and every penny. I'm here to tell you this evening that as governor, I will wake up each and every morning fighting for an economy that works for everyone, not just the wealthy. Thank you very much.
Well, gentlemen, that was a lot of fun. Thank you both, but we are
Let's
out
do
of
it
time.
again next week.
Christy?
All right, and that is going to do it for our gubernatorial town hall. Our thanks to Governor Rick Snyder and, of course, Congressman Mark Schauer, our audience right here, Wayne State University, and to you at home for watching. Head to myvote.org for more coverage of election 2014. For all of us at Detroit Public Television, I'm Christy McDonald. Have a great night.
Find out where candidates stand on issues important to Michiganders, including financial security and caregiving. Then make your voice heard on Election Day. Go to aarp.org/yourvote for more information. That's aarp.org/yourvote.
This program was produced in partnership with the Detroit News, Detroit Free Press, and Detroit Public Television.